Why does the sting of another human being's disrespect linger in your chest like an unexploded bomb, long after the words have been spoken? When someone treats you with contempt, insults your dignity, or dismisses your worth, your immediate instinct is to look outward, to direct your fury or your wounded pride at the transgressor. You believe your anger is a righteous defense of your honor, a necessary shield against an external assault. But let us look past the surface of your immediate, reactionary rage. The burning discomfort you feel is not actually caused by the other person's words, it is the violent awakening of something dormant within your own psyche. They did not create the wound, they merely stepped on a nerve that you have spent a lifetime trying to numb, hide, and forget. The truth you avoid is that the disrespected ego is a fragile, desperate construction, entirely dependent on the validation of the outside world to sustain its illusion of security. When someone denies you that validation through disrespect, the mirror shatters, forcing you to look at the terrifying void beneath your carefully crafted persona. You are not truly angry because they crossed a boundary, you are terrified because their dismissal suggests that the secret, unworthy version of yourself you keep buried in the dark might actually be real. This tension, this agonizing friction between who you pretend to be and the shadow you fear you are, is the real battlefield. If you wish to neutralize disrespect, you must stop fighting the mirror and begin the painful, necessary work of looking at what is being reflected back at you from the depths of your own unconscious. Topic 1: The Illusion of the External Enemy. When you are disrespected, your ego immediately constructs a narrative of victimhood, painting the other person as the sole source of your internal chaos. This is a primitive psychological defense mechanism designed to protect your conscious mind from a much more devastating realization. By focusing your psychic energy entirely on the malice of the perpetrator, you successfully avoid asking why their opinion holds the power to destabilize your emotional equilibrium in the first place. You become obsessed with their injustice, their lack of manners, or their cruelty, turning them into a monumental figure of malice. In doing so, you willingly surrender your psychological autonomy, handing them the keys to your inner sanctuary. The psychological reality is that no one can make you feel inferior without your own unconscious complicity. When an insult pierces through your defenses, it is because it found an ally inside your own mind, a hidden, repressed belief that agrees with the insult. If you were completely secure in your intrinsic value, the disrespect of an ignorant or malicious individual would slide past you like water over stone. The very fact that you are provoked, that your blood boils and your thoughts race with imaginary arguments, proves that the external attacker has struck gold. They have triggered a pocket of self-doubt that you have refused to integrate into your conscious awareness. To look at this through the lens of analytical psychology is to understand that the external enemy is often nothing more than a screen onto which we project our own unresolved internal conflicts. Your ego demands that everyone treat you with the utmost reverence because, deep down, you do not respect yourself. You are using the respect of others as a psychological life support system to keep your fragile self-esteem afloat. When that supply is cut off, even for a moment, the ego panics and lashes out in a desperate bid to force the external world to validate its existence once again. Consider the moments when you lie awake at night, replaying a disrespectful encounter over and over in your mind, formulating the perfect, devastating retorts you wish you had said. Who are you truly fighting in those midnight hours? It is not the person who insulted you, they are likely asleep, completely indifferent to your suffering. You are fighting the phantom of your own powerlessness. You are wrestling with the uncomfortable realization that your sense of self-identity is so weak that it can be completely derailed by a single careless comment from a flawed, fragile human being. This constant state of hypervigilance, where you are always on guard against potential slights and insults, is an incredibly exhausting way to live. It transforms the social world into a minefield where every interaction carries the threat of psychological annihilation. You become a slave to the behavior of others, constantly adjusting your persona to avoid disapproval, yet exploding with resentment when that disapproval inevitably comes. You believe that by fighting back, by demanding respect through aggression or manipulation, you are asserting your strength, but you are actually exposing your profound vulnerability. The breakthrough occurs when you finally stop trying to fix, punish, or change the person who disrespected you. You must turn your gaze inward and ask the uncomfortable, piercing question: what is the part of me that believes this insult has the right to define me? This shift in perspective is agonizing because it strips away the comforting cloak of pure victimhood. It forces you to acknowledge that you are a co-creator of your own emotional suffering, that you have handed an outsider the power to dictate your internal state of being. When you withdraw your projection from the external enemy, you reclaim the psychic energy that was leaking out through your anger. You begin to realize that the person who disrespected you is merely an actor playing a role in the theater of your unconscious, bringing to light the areas where you are still unhealed and fractured. They are not the author of your worth, they are merely a crude measurement of how easily you can be separated from your own center. Recognizing this is the first, painful step toward true psychological sovereignty. Topic 2. The shadow's resonance in the insult. To understand why disrespect causes such profound psychological damage, we must venture into the darkest, most neglected corners of your psyche, the shadow. The shadow consists of all those parts of yourself, your impulses, weaknesses, fears, and desires, that you judge to be unacceptable and therefore repress into the unconscious. When someone disrespects you, they often inadvertently point directly at a piece of your shadow, or they behave in a way that your own shadow desperately wishes it could behave. The intense emotional charge you experience is the sound of your shadow rattling its cage, demanding to be recognized. Imagine someone accusing you of being incompetent, selfish, or weak. If these traits were entirely integrated and understood within your psyche, the accusation would meet no internal resistance, it would simply be a false statement, devoid of emotional weight. But if you have spent your entire life trying to prove you are strong, capable, and entirely selfless, the mere suggestion of the opposite sends shockwaves through your system. The insult resonates because it echoes the secret, terrifying whisper of your own shadow, *, what if you really are weak? What if you are just a fraud? *. Furthermore, the person who disrespects you is often acting out their own shadow, projecting their internal self-loathing and chaos onto you. But instead of seeing their behavior as a manifestation of their own psychological disease, your own shadow locks onto theirs in a toxic, unconscious embrace. You match their hostility with hostility, their petty cruelty with petty cruelty, becoming the very thing you claim to despise. In that moment of reactive rage, your persona drops, and your own shadow takes the wheel, driving you to behave in ways that later leave you filled with shame. This is the hidden trap of reacting immediately to disrespect. When you counterattack out of wounded pride, you are not acting from a place of conscious choice, you are being possessed by the autonomous complex of the shadow. The ego believes it is defending itself, but it has actually been bypassed entirely. You are reduced to a biological, instinctual machine, reacting to a stimulus exactly as the manipulator desires. You have allowed their darkness to ignite your own, dragging you down into the same undifferentiated mud of the unconscious. To truly master these situations, you must develop the capacity to stand in the fire of your own discomfort without moving a muscle. When the insult lands, instead of striking back, you must turn around and look directly at the shadow element that has been activated within you. If someone's arrogance infuriates you, you must ask where your own hidden arrogance lies. If someone's dismissal makes you feel worthless, you must confront the internal tyrant that constantly tells you that you are not enough. This process of shadow integration is incredibly painful because it requires you to give up the illusion of your own absolute goodness and victimhood. It forces you to admit that the potential for the very behavior that disgusted you in the other person exists within your own breast. It is far easier to scream at an antagonist, to call them toxic, narcissistic, or malicious, than it is to admit that their presence has exposed a profound lack of inner authority and self-acceptance within yourself. Yet, it is precisely within this painful confrontation that your freedom lies. When you fully own and integrate your shadow, when you accept your own capacity for weakness, selfishness, and error, an amazing thing happens: the insults of the world lose their ammunition. If someone calls you a hypocrite, and you have already looked into the mirror and wept over your own hypocrisy, the word cannot hurt you. It is no longer a weapon, it is merely an observation of a universal human condition that you have already embraced and transcended. Topic 3. The fragility of the persona and the quest for validation. The persona is the social mask we wear to navigate the world, the idealized version of ourselves we present to society to gain acceptance, love, and, most importantly, respect. You have spent decades building your persona, carefully crafting your reputation, your professional status, and your social standing. You look in the mirror and you see this mask, convincing yourself that this is who you truly are. But the persona is inherently fragile. It is a superficial skin, a psychological construct built entirely on the shifting sands of collective opinion and external validation. When someone disrespects you, they are essentially ripping off your mask, or worse, refusing to acknowledge its existence. They treat the doctor like a child, the honorable man like a liar, the intellectual like a fool. This sends the ego into a state of existential panic because the ego genuinely believes that if the persona is destroyed, nothing else remains. The intense anxiety and anger you feel when disrespected is the terror of the ego realizing that its social currency is completely worthless in the eyes of the transgressor. You must realize that your desperate hunger for respect from others is a direct measurement of your own internal bankruptcy. The man who truly knows who he is does not need a room full of people to validate his identity. He does not require a constant stream of compliments or polite deference to feel real. It is only the individual who is fundamentally disconnected from their true self, from the deep core of their being, who must constantly demand that society mirror back an image of their importance. This reliance on the persona turns you into a psychological beggar, wandering through life hoping that people will drop coins of respect into your cup. If they treat you well, you are happy. If they treat you poorly, you are devastated. You have placed the ultimate control of your psychological well-being into the hands of completely random, unpredictable, and often deeply unstable people. You are living at the mercy of their moods, their biases, and their projections, completely devoid of any true, unshakable internal anchor. The immediate reaction to disrespect, whether it is a loud confrontation, a sarcastic remark, or a passive-aggressive retreat, is always a desperate attempt to patch up the torn persona. You want to force the other person, and the witnesses around you, to re-establish the illusion that you are powerful, smart, or dangerous. You think that by winning the argument or silencing the critic, you have restored your honor. But all you have really done is reinforce your dependency on the external world's opinion, binding yourself even tighter to the collective hive mind. True psychological maturity requires the progressive dissolution of this absolute identification with the persona. You must come to understand that the mask you wear is a tool for communication, not the essence of your soul. When someone insults your persona, they are insulting a character you are playing, a superficial layer of existence that has nothing to do with the deep, eternal currents of your true self. When you understand this, the insult ceases to be an existential threat, it becomes a minor, irrelevant piece of social noise. This requires a profound shift from seeking validation from the outside world to cultivating an unshakable inner authority. You must become the sole judge of your own worth, the only court of law that matters when evaluating your character. If the internal court finds you honorable, the slander of the entire world cannot touch you. But if your internal court is empty, and you rely entirely on the shifting praise of the crowd, you will forever remain a fragile leaf blown about by the chaotic winds of human disrespect. Topic 4. Projections of the unconscious mind. To properly navigate the landscape of human hostility, you must understand the phenomenon of psychological projection. Projection occurs when an individual cannot tolerate a specific truth about themselves, and so their unconscious mind automatically projects that trait onto another person. When someone attacks you with venom, when they dismiss your achievements or treat you with sudden, unprovoked contempt, you are almost never looking at an objective evaluation of your character. You are looking at a mirror of their own inner torment, an externalization of their own self-hatred. The person who goes out of their way to make you feel small is usually suffering from a crushing sense of insignificance. They cannot bear the weight of their own mediocrity, so their unconscious mind seeks out an object, you, upon which to dump their toxic waste. By attempting to lower your status, their ego experiences a temporary, hallucinatory inflation, feeling powerful and superior for a brief, fleeting moment. Their disrespect is not a reflection of your lack of value, it is a confession of their own psychological agony. The tragedy is that you do not see this. Because you are trapped in your own ego consciousness, you take their projection completely personally. You absorb their toxic waste into your own system, allowing it to poison your thoughts and feelings. You accept their premise, stepping into the boxing ring they have constructed for you, completely blind to the fact that they are not actually fighting you at all. They are fighting the demons of their own past, their own failures, and their own unlived lives, using your face as a target. If you could see the world through the eyes of the unconscious, you would realize that most interpersonal conflicts are not clashes of conscious wills, but chaotic collisions of unintegrated projections. Two ghosts screaming at each other through the vessels of two human bodies. When you respond to a projection with an equal and opposite projection, when you insult them back, calling them pathetic, jealous, or stupid, you are simply multiplying the illusion. You are adding fuel to an unconscious fire that will consume both of your souls. This is why the immediate, instinctive urge to defend yourself is so psychologically flawed. What are you defending? You are defending an accusation that was never truly about you in the first place. By fighting the projection, you validate it, giving it a weight and reality it does not deserve. The moment you argue with a madman, you adopt his madness. The moment you desperately try to prove your worth to someone who is determined to see you as worthless, you accept their distorted reality as the legitimate framework of your existence. The only psychologically sound response to pure projection is a radical, detached withdrawal of your own participation. You must learn to look at the person who is disrespecting you with the objective, dispassionate curiosity of a scientist observing a biological specimen. You must observe their rage, their sarcasm, or their condescension not as an assault, but as a symptom of a severe psychological disturbance. This is not a matter of moral superiority or condescending pity, it is a cold, clinical recognition of reality. When you refuse to catch the ball of their projection, it falls harmlessly to the ground, leaving the energy with its rightful owner. The person who threw the insult is forced to sit with their own poison, unable to discharge it onto you. This requires a tremendous amount of ego control, a willingness to let the other person think they have won the superficial argument, while you remain completely untouched, holding your psychological ground in the deep, silent fortress of your own integrated consciousness. Topic 5. The gift of the adversary. It is a fundamental law of the psyche that growth cannot occur without resistance. Just as a muscle must be strained against weight to grow stronger, the human spirit requires opposition, conflict, and friction to achieve true individuation. From this perspective, the person who disrespects you, the tyrant who undermines you, and the critic who slanders you are not merely obstacles to your happiness, they are essential instruments of your psychological evolution. They are the psychological adversaries sent by the unconscious to test the structural integrity of your soul. When you live a comfortable life, surrounded only by people who praise you and agree with you, your consciousness remains soft, weak, and undifferentiated. You fall into a pleasant, hypnotic sleep, convinced of your own enlightenment and emotional maturity. But this maturity is an illusion, a fair-weather construction that will collapse at the first sign of a real storm. It is only when you are subjected to the cold, harsh blast of genuine disrespect, betrayal, and hostility that you find out who you truly are under pressure. The adversary is a master at finding your cracks. They do not attack your strong points, they find the exact boundary line where your self-worth ends and your insecurity begins, and they press down with all their might. Your immediate reaction is to curse them, to wish they would disappear from your life, to pray for an easier path. But to wish away the adversary is to wish away the very catalyst that can transform you from a reactive child into a self-determined adult. They are revealing to you, with absolute precision, the exact work you have left to do. If you can shift your perspective from that of a wounded victim to that of an initiate undergoing a psychological trial, the nature of the entire encounter changes. The disrespectful boss, the arrogant colleague, or the hostile family member is no longer a villain destroying your peace of mind, they are your most valuable teacher. They are providing you with free, unvarnished data about the state of your internal architecture. Every time they provoke you into an emotional reaction, they are pointing a finger at a spot where you are still unfree, where you are still an emotional hostage to the world. Think of how much time and energy you waste wishing people were different, wishing they were kinder, more self-aware, or more respectful. This is a childish, utopian fantasy that completely ignores the reality of human nature. The world is full of broken, bitter, and unconscious individuals who will project their pain onto anyone within arm's reach. The adversary is a permanent fixture of the human condition. Your goal should not be to eliminate the adversary from the world, but to render yourself completely immune to their venom. True power does not consist in changing the behavior of others so that they never hurt you, it consists in changing your own psychological chemistry so that their attempts to hurt you become completely irrelevant. When someone treats you with disrespect, and you utilize that moment to observe your own reactions, to integrate your shadow, and to fortify your boundaries, you are actively transmuting lead into gold. You are taking the low vibrational energy of their malice and using it as fuel for your own spiritual advancement. Therefore, when someone disrespects you, do not run away, do not weep, and do not scream. Stand firm, look directly into the eyes of the storm, and silently thank the adversary for the invaluable service they are performing. They are exposing the weak points in your armor, allowing you the opportunity to patch them before a truly catastrophic blow falls. They are forcing you to grow up, to leave behind the safe, suffocating warmth of collective validation, and to step into the cold, sharp light of your own individual truth. Topic 6, the pitfall of immediate reaction and the power of the void. The most common, devastating error made when facing disrespect is the compulsion to react immediately. The moment the insult lands, a biochemical and psychological cascade is triggered within your body. Your heart rate increases, cortisol and adrenaline flood your system, and your ego screams for immediate retaliation to restore its damaged pride. You feel an overwhelming, almost intoxicating urge to speak, to strike, to correct the record, or to wound the other person in return. This urgency is the calling card of the unconscious complex taking control of your mind. When you react instantly, you are entering into a state of psychological possession. You have completely handed over your free will, your intelligence, and your strategic advantage to the instinctual, animalistic layers of your brain. You think you are fighting back, but you are actually behaving with absolute predictability. The manipulator who insulted you knows exactly which buttons they are pushing, and by reacting on cue, you prove that their control over you is absolute. You are a puppet dancing to the rhythm of their hostility. The true antidote to disrespect is not a clever comeback or an aggressive posture, it is the cultivation of a profound, unnatural psychological void. It is the absolute refusal to offer an immediate reaction. When someone hurls an insult or treats you with contempt, you must learn to create a vast, silent space between the stimulus and your response. You must sit with the burning sensation of the insult, watching it ripple through your body and mind, without letting it manifest into an external action or word. This silence, this complete suspension of reaction, is incredibly disconcerting to the person who is attacking you. When someone insults you, they are expecting a specific energetic return, they expect you to get defensive, to get angry, or to shrink in shame. They have prepared themselves for a specific kind of battle. When you offer them nothing but a cold, steady, and unblinking silence, their energy has nowhere to land. It overshoots the mark, leaving them off balance, exposed, and deeply uncomfortable. The void you create forces the attacker to confront the echoes of their own hostility. In the absence of your reaction, their words hang in the air like a foul odor, exposing their own pettiness, cruelty, and insecurity for everyone, including themselves, to see. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their ugliness back into their own face. It requires an immense amount of internal strength to hold this void, to let the ego scream for a retort inside your head while maintaining an outer countenance of absolute stillness. Furthermore, by refusing to react immediately, you preserve your psychic energy for a conscious, strategic response later, if one is even necessary. You allow the emotional storm to pass through you, clearing the way for your higher intellect and intuition to evaluate the situation objectively. You can then decide, from a position of absolute calm and authority, whether to set a firm boundary, walk away permanently, or address the issue with cold, clinical precision. This practice of non-reaction is completely different from passive-aggressive compliance or cowardly retreat. It is not the silence of a beaten dog, it is the silence of a mountain that refuses to move because a small bird has landed on its peak. It is a position of absolute, terrifying strength. It communicates to the transgressor, louder than any scream ever could, that their opinions, their malice, and their very presence are so utterly insignificant that they cannot even disturb the surface of your peace of mind. Topic 7. The destructive cycle of resentment. If you do not react immediately to disrespect, but you fail to psychologically integrate the experience internally, you run into another, equally dangerous psychological trap, the slow, corrosive poison of resentment. Resentment occurs when the ego suppresses its anger outwardly but continues to chew on it inwardly, nursing the wound over days, weeks, or even years. You replay the insult in your mind, fantasizing about revenge, building a monument of bitterness around the event, allowing the experience to warp your entire worldview. Resentment is the ultimate victory of the person who disrespected you. Long after the physical interaction has ended, long after they have forgotten your name, you are still carrying them around inside your head like a parasite. They are living rent-free in the mansion of your mind, dictating your mood, spoiling your relationships, and draining your vital life force. You believe that your bitterness is a weapon directed at them, but it is a poison that you are drinking yourself, hoping that the other person will die from it. From a Jungian perspective, chronic resentment is a sign that you have failed to take responsibility for your own boundaries. You allowed someone to cross a line, you failed to integrate the shadow element that was triggered, and now you are projecting your own self-loathing onto the world as a generalized bitterness. You become cynical, untrusting, and hypersensitive, seeing potential disrespect in every innocent comment, transforming yourself into a professional victim who wears their wounds like badges of honor. This state of mind completely halts the process of individuation. The resentful person is permanently locked in the past, bound by an invisible umbilical cord of hatred to the person who harmed them. You cannot create a meaningful future, you cannot explore the deep mysteries of your own soul, when all your psychic energy is being consumed by the maintenance of an ancient grudge. Your identity becomes defined not by who you are, but by what was done to you. To break the chains of resentment, you must undergo the painful process of psychological digestion. You must take the raw material of the disrespectful encounter and completely dismantle it in the chamber of your own self-awareness. You must forgive, not out of a sense of cheap, sentimental morality or religious obligation, but out of a cold, calculated act of self-preservation. You do not forgive the other person to set them free, you forgive them to cast them out of your psyche permanently. Forgiveness, in the true psychological sense, means relinquishing your demand for a better past. It means accepting that the disrespect happened, that the person who did it was a flawed, unconscious instrument of reality, and that no amount of internal stewing will ever change the event. It means choosing to withdraw your psychic investment from the narrative of your betrayal, cutting the energetic cord that ties you to the antagonist, and returning your focus entirely to the cultivation of your own present-day power. When you truly digest an insult, it loses its toxic quality and becomes inert matter. It is no longer an emotional wound that bleeds whenever it is touched, it becomes a scar, a tough piece of tissue that reminds you of a battle you fought, survived, and grew from. You can look back at the person who disrespected you without a single flicker of anger or hatred, viewing them with the same complete indifference you would accord to a storm that passed over your house years ago. Topic 8. The path of individuation and absolute self-sovereignty. The ultimate destination of your journey through the landscape of human conflict is individuation, the process of becoming the unique, whole psychological being that you were always meant to be. Individuation requires you to pull back all your projections from the world, to confront and integrate your shadow, to dissolve your absolute identification with the social persona, and to establish an unshakable connection to the deep, organizing center of the psyche, the self. When you achieve this state of self-sovereignty, the very nature of human disrespect changes entirely. For the individuated individual, disrespect is no longer an existential crisis or an emotional catastrophe, it is merely a trivial piece of environmental data. When you stand securely in your own center, rooted in a deep, conscious understanding of your own strengths, flaws, destiny, and worth, the opinions of the crowd lose their gravity. The praise of the world cannot inflate your ego, and the contempt of the world cannot diminish your soul. You have broken free from the collective matrix of validation and reaction. You begin to see that the need to control how other people view you is a form of madness. You cannot control the minds of others, you cannot force an unconscious, wounded world to see you clearly, to value your heart, or to respect your boundaries. To spend your life chasing their approval or fighting their disapproval is to waste the precious, limited spark of consciousness you have been given. Your only real task is to be true to the internal law of your own being, to live an authentic life in alignment with the deepest truths of your soul. When someone approaches you with disrespect, your absolute self-sovereignty manifests as a calm, terrifying clarity. You do not need to shout, you do not need to insult them back, and you do not need to prove anything to anyone. You simply state your truth, enforce your boundaries with cold, unyielding firmness, and walk away without looking back. If their presence is toxic, you remove them from your life completely, not out of malice or anger, but out of a rational, conscious dedication to the integrity of your own psychic space. This is the state of psychological invulnerability that every true seeker must strive for. It is not an emotional numbness or a cold, psychopathic detachment from humanity, it is a profound, compassionate understanding of the human condition that allows you to remain steady in the midst of chaos. You see the suffering beneath the insult, the fear beneath the arrogance, the ignorance beneath the contempt, and because you see it clearly, it can never catch hold of your own soul. You remain the master of your own internal kingdom. The journey to this level of sovereignty is a lonely, difficult road that requires you to walk through the fire of your own darkest insecurities. It demands that you give up the comfortable role of the innocent victim and take absolute, terrifying responsibility for your own emotional state. But on the other side of that fire lies a freedom that no human being can ever steal from you, a peace of mind that is anchored not in the fickle respect of society, but in the eternal, unshakable foundations of your own integrated self. If you have accompanied me through this descent into the mechanics of the mind, you must realize by now that the true challenge of your life has never been the people who disrespected you, but the profound fragmentation within your own breast. Every slight, every insult, and every act of contempt you experience from the outside world is an invitation from the unconscious to stop living on the surface of your existence, to tear down the fragile illusions of your persona, and to confront the raw, unintegrated shadow that dictates your suffering from the dark. If you choose to remain reactive, to continue trading insult for insult in a desperate bid for social validation, you will remain a perpetual slave to the collective madness of humanity, a fragile leaf tossed about by the whims of fools. But if you have the courage to stand still, to absorb the strike without flinching, and to use the malice of the adversary as a mirror to achieve absolute inner sovereignty, you will begin to touch a level of power that the world can neither give nor take away. If these reflections have pierced through your defenses and forced you to see the hidden machinery of your own pain, you have already taken the first uncomfortable step toward a reality that most human beings spend their entire lives actively avoiding. Do not let this moment of clarity slip back into the slumber of the unconscious. Subscribe to this channel, join this vessel of deep psychological inquiry, and secure your place among those who dare to look into the abyss of their own nature. Comment below with the specific, uncomfortable truth you realized about your own shadow during this reflection. Tell me what piece of your own vulnerability you have been hiding behind your anger. Let us speak openly in the comments, stripped of our social masks, as individuals committed to the agonizing, beautiful work of becoming truly whole.